the billionaire dropped to his knees in the ashes. Smoke still curled from the blackened metal frame of the garage, drifting into the cold evening air as if the place itself were still breathing its last breath. Victor Hartwell didn't care that his tailored shoes were ruined or that his security team stood frozen behind him. He pressed his palm into the soot, stared at the charred ground, and whispered words no one expected from a man like him. "I was wrong." His voice cracked. Not for the cameras, there were none. Not for the press, he had ordered them away. This moment was naked. Real. "I misjudged the only man who ever truly loved my daughter." A few steps away, Elias Moore stood silently. His face was streaked with ash, his knuckles bruised, his eyes hollow from exhaustion. He didn't look at Victor. He couldn't. Because everything Elias had built with his own hands lay in ruins behind him. And somewhere far away, locked inside a mansion of glass and steel, Lena Hartwell had no idea that fire had just rewritten her fate. This story didn't begin with flames. It began years earlier, inside a penthouse so high above Silvercrest City that the noise of real life never reached it. Lena stood in front of a wall-sized mirror as another stylist adjusted her dress. The fabric alone cost more than most people earned in a year. Diamonds pressed cold against her collarbone. The reflection staring back at her was flawless, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect posture. And completely empty eyes. "Smile a little more," the stylist said softly. Lena obeyed. She always did. Downstairs, the annual Hartwell Charity Gala buzzed with laughter and polished lies. Men in tailored suits glanced at Lena the way investors studied a balance sheet. Women whispered behind champagne glasses. Everyone wanted proximity to power. Victor Hartwell watched his daughter descend the stairs and nodded once, satisfied. She looked presentable. Profitable. A man stepped forward, extending his hand. "Lena, right? I hear you're the future of Hartwell Global." She shook his hand. "I'm just my father's daughter." He laughed. "For now." That was the problem. For now. Always for now. Never her. Later that night, Lena slipped onto the balcony alone, the city lights glittering below. The noise faded behind the glass doors. Her phone buzzed. A message from a man she'd dated briefly. "Dinner tonight? Or is your dad deciding your schedule again?" She stared at the screen, then deleted the message without replying. Victor joined her moments later. "You left early." "I needed air." "You need thicker skin," he replied. "People will always want something from you." "That's all they want from me," Lena said quietly. Victor frowned. "That's the price of legacy." She turned to him. "Do you even know who I am when I'm not your legacy?" Silence. That silence followed her back upstairs, into her bedroom, into the early hours of the morning when she lay awake wondering what it would feel like to be invisible. 3 nights later, Lena packed a backpack. No assistants. No drivers. No security. She pulled on worn jeans, an oversized jacket, tied her hair back, and wiped her face clean of makeup. She stared at herself one last time. If no one loved her as Lena Hartwell, maybe someone could love her as no one at all. She slipped out through a service exit before dawn. The city did not welcome her. Silvercrest streets were loud, impatient, indifferent. People brushed past her without seeing her. Shop owners eyed her suspiciously. Hunger came faster than she expected. By the second night, her feet ached, her stomach burned, and fear crept into her bones. She sat on a curb near Ridgeway District, clutching her backpack when footsteps approached. "Hey!" She flinched. A man crouched a few feet away, hands visible, voice calm. He wore grease-stained coveralls, dark hair pushed back, eyes steady. "You look like you haven't eaten." "I'm fine," she lied. He studied her for a second, then stood. "Suit yourself." He took 2 steps, then stopped. "But if you change your mind, I'm closing up the garage down the street. I've got leftover food." She hesitated. Pride screamed. Hunger won. Okay. Inside the small garage, the air smelled of oil and metal. It wasn't warm, but it was safe. He handed her a paper-wrapped sandwich and a bottle of water. No strings, he said. Eat? She did. Slowly at first, then faster as tears blurred her vision. What's your name? He asked, wiping his hands on a rag. Lena, she said. It felt strange saying it without her last name. I'm Elias. He didn't ask her where she came from. He didn't ask what she'd lost. He just sat nearby, fixing an engine, humming softly as if this were normal. And for the first time in her life, she felt like it was. Days turned into weeks. Lena helped clean the garage. Elias taught her how to change oil, how to listen to an engine like it was speaking. They talked while they worked. What do you want? Elias asked one evening. She thought carefully. To be chosen. Without conditions. He nodded. That's rare. What about you? I want something I can stand behind, he said. Something honest. She watched him, heart tightening. This was the life Victor Hartwell had warned her about. Hard. Small. Unimportant. And she had never felt more alive. She almost told him the truth one night. I need to say something, she began. Elias looked up. You okay? She swallowed. I don't want to lie to you. He smiled gently. Then don't. Say it when you're ready. That kindness terrified her. One afternoon, a black SUV slowed near the garage. Mara Collins sat inside, eyes narrowing. There you are, she whispered. That night, Victor Hartwell received a call. We found her. If this story is already pulling you in, take a moment right now, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Stories like this survive because of people like you who believe real love stories still matter. Lena was asleep on a thin mattress behind the garage when boots hit the floor. She sat up just as the door burst open. Lena Hartwell, a voice barked. You're coming home. Elias rushed in. Hey! You can't just. She was already standing, shaking. Elias, I'm sorry. What's happening? He demanded. She looked at him, eyes full of everything she hadn't said. I never meant to hurt you. Security closed in. Elias reached for her hand. Wait, he said. Tell me who you are. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. And then she was gone. Elias stood alone in the silence. Back in the mansion, Lena screamed until her voice was gone. Victor stood outside her door, jaw clenched. You embarrassed this family, he said coldly. She slid down the door, sobbing. You took the only thing that ever felt real. Victor didn't answer. He didn't know yet that everything he feared losing, he already had. The mansion felt smaller than the streets. Lena paced the length of her bedroom, barefoot on cold marble, her fists clenched so tight her nails dug into her palms. The windows were sealed shut. The door locked from the outside. Cameras blinked quietly in the corners like unblinking eyes. Victor Hartwell stood on the other side of the door, arms crossed, his voice low but unyielding. You're safe here. She laughed bitterly. Safe from what? From being human? You were sleeping on concrete, he snapped. Eating scraps. I was living, she shot back. For the first time in my life. Silence followed. Then Victor spoke again, colder now. That man filled your head with nonsense. He never asked me for anything, Lena said, her voice trembling. Not my name. Not my money. Not my future. Victor's jaw tightened. That's how men like him survive. They play innocent. She slammed her palm against the door. You don't know him. I know enough, Victor replied. And this conversation is over. His footsteps retreated down the hallway. Lena slid down the door again, her chest aching. Elias's face burned in her mind. The way he listened. The way he waited. The way he never once tried to impress her. She pressed her forehead to the wood. I should have told you, she whispered to the empty room. I should have trusted you. Across the city, Elias sat alone in the garage, staring at the spot where Lena used to sleep. Her backpack was gone. The small laugh she made when she messed up an engine tune echoed in the silence. He punched the metal workbench once, then again, until pain finally cut through the confusion. So that's it, he muttered. Just gone. The next morning, a black car pulled up outside the garage. Elias wiped his hands as a man in an expensive coat stepped out, flanked by security. Elias Moore, the man said. Victor Hartwell wants to see you. Elias let out a short laugh. Figures. He followed them anyway. Victor didn't offer him a seat. You involved yourself with my daughter, Victor said, standing behind his desk. I didn't know who she was, Elias replied evenly. And I didn't ask. Victor studied him. But you kept her. No, Elias said, voice firm. She stayed. Victor's eyes hardened. You let her sleep in a garage. She chose to, Elias snapped. And I made sure she was fed and safe. Victor leaned forward. You think that earns you something? Elias met his gaze. I don't want anything from you. Good, Victor said. Because you won't get anything. Elias turned to leave. Wait, Victor said. If you truly care about her, you'll forget her. Elias stopped, his shoulders tense. That's not how love works. Victor scoffed. Love doesn't pay bills. Elias turned slowly. Neither does control. Security stepped forward, but Victor raised a hand. For a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe. You're dismissed, Victor said. Elias walked out without looking back. Days passed. Lena refused meals. Refused visitors. Her mother slipped in quietly one evening, sitting beside her on the bed. He's not like your father, her mother said gently. I know, Lena whispered. That's why he scares him. Her mother squeezed her hand. Sometimes men who survive hardship forget what softness feels like. I won't forget him, Lena said. Even if you lock me here forever. Her mother nodded. I know. Meanwhile, Elias struggled. Without Lena's help, work piled up. Bills stacked. Customers dwindled. One night, he sat in the dark garage, the hum of the city outside barely audible. I can't lose you, he said aloud, though no one was there. Even if I never see you again. A week later, Victor summoned him again. This time, Victor spoke first. I want proof. Elias frowned. Of what? That you're not just another man clinging to my daughter, Victor said. Build something. Something real. 6 months. Elias laughed harshly. With what money? Victor slid a paper across the desk. No money from me. Just time. Elias stared at the paper, then back at Victor. And if I succeed? Victor hesitated. Then I won't stand in your way. Elias exhaled slowly. And if I fail? You disappear from her life. Elias didn't answer immediately. Then he nodded. Deal. The months that followed broke him down to his bones. He worked 16-hour days. Took on impossible jobs. Slept in the garage. Turned down shortcuts and shady offers. One night, a man approached him quietly. I can double your output, the man said. Just tweak the numbers. Elias shook his head. No. You'll go under, the man warned. Then I'll go under honest, Elias replied. 2 weeks later, the garage caught fire. By the time Elias arrived, flames had eaten through everything. Tools melted. Records gone. His life's work reduced to blackened steel. He dropped to his knees, choking on smoke. Lena felt it before she heard it. Something twisted inside her chest, sharp and sudden. She pressed a hand to her heart, breath shallow. That night, she broke down her door. Security rushed in, but she didn't fight. She just looked at her father, eyes blazing. "You did this," she said. Victor stiffened. "That's absurd. You're testing him like he's disposable," she cried. "Like I was." Victor opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. For the first time, doubt crept in. The next morning, Victor stood in the ashes of Elias's garage. And the words fell out of him before he could stop them. "I was wrong." Elias finally looked at him. And nothing was the same again. Victor stayed on his knees longer than anyone expected. The security team shifted uncomfortably behind him, unsure whether to intervene. Elias said nothing. He stared at the wreckage, at the place where Lena had laughed while wiping grease from her hands, at the corner where she had once fallen asleep sitting up because she was too tired to move. Victor finally stood, brushing ash from his coat. His voice was quieter now. Stripped of authority. "Was this all you had?" Elias nodded once. "Everything." Victor swallowed. "It won't be the end." Elias let out a hollow laugh. "You already said that once." Victor turned to face him fully. "I meant it then as a threat. I mean it now as a promise." Elias studied him. "I don't want your pity." "Good," Victor replied. "I'm not offering it." They stood in silence, the weight of everything unsaid pressing between them. Lena watched from the balcony of the mansion as the sun dipped below the skyline. She hadn't slept. Her father hadn't spoken to her since the night of the fire. When Victor finally entered her room, she didn't look at him. "He lost everything," she said quietly. Victor nodded. "So did I. I just didn't know it yet." She turned then, eyes red. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to stop pretending money is the same as love," he said. "And I'm going to step back." Her breath caught. "You mean?" "I won't force you," Victor said. "Not anymore." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You can't undo the damage with words." "I know," Victor replied. "That's why I won't use them." The next day, Elias returned to the garage site. He expected nothing. No miracle. No apology. What he found instead were trucks. Materials. Workers. Permits already approved. Victor stood nearby, hands in his pockets. "I didn't pay them," Victor said quickly. "I just opened doors." Elias clenched his jaw. "Why?" "Because you didn't ask me to," Victor replied. "And because you earn more respect in 6 months than most men earn in a lifetime." Elias looked at the ground. "I didn't do it for you." "I know," Victor said softly. "That's why it matters." Rebuilding took everything Elias had left. His body ached constantly. His hands split and bled. Some nights, he collapsed onto the concrete, staring at the ceiling, wondering if Lena still remembered the sound of his voice. She did more than remember. Against her father's advice, Lena began volunteering at a small art center downtown. No press. No cameras. Just kids and paint and quiet moments where she felt useful. One afternoon, a familiar voice stopped her cold. "You always hold the brush too tight." She turned slowly. Elias stood there, thinner, tired, eyes locked on hers. "I thought you hated paint," she whispered. "I hate wasting it," he said. They stared at each other, the world narrowing to that moment. "I wanted to tell you," she said, tears forming. "I tried." "I know," Elias replied. "I just didn't know who I was losing." She stepped closer. I never lied about who I was with you. I just hid my name. He exhaled shakily. That hurt. I know, she said. But loving you was the only truth I've ever had. Silence stretched. Then Elias reached out, hesitated, and let his hand fall. I'm not the man your world expects, he said. I don't want that world, Lena replied. I want you. Elias closed his eyes. I'm still building. I'll wait, she said. I always have. They didn't touch. Not yet. But something fragile and new settled between them, hope, cautious and real. Months later, the garage reopened. The sign was simple. No logos. No slogans. Just a name painted by hand. More Auto. Customers came back. Then more. Word spread, not about wealth, but about honesty. Victor visited once. Quietly. He stood in the corner, watching Elias work. You're better than I was at your age, Victor said. Elias didn't look up. I don't want to be you. Victor nodded. Neither do I anymore. When the 6 months ended, Victor invited Elias to dinner. Not a negotiation. Not a test. A meal. Lena sat between them, her hands trembling. Victor cleared his throat. I won't pretend I understand everything. But I see what you give her. And I won't stand in the way of that. Elias met Lena's eyes. This isn't about permission. Victor smiled faintly. No. It's about respect. They married quietly. No gala. No headlines. Just close friends and steady hands held tightly. Life didn't soften after that. There were nights when money ran thin. When Elias's mother fell ill. When rumors circled about Lena throwing away her inheritance. Through it all, they chose each other. Every day. Years passed. Children followed. A daughter first, then a son. They grew up in a home filled with laughter and scraped knees and lessons earned the hard way. Victor visited often. He laughed more. Listened longer. When cancer finally took him, he held Elias's hand at the end. Protect what matters, Victor whispered. Elias nodded. I will. And Lena stood beside them, knowing the fire that once destroyed everything had forged something unbreakable. Elias kept his promise. After Victor's funeral, life didn't pause to honor grief. Bills still arrived. Children still needed breakfast. Customers still showed up at the garage with engines that wouldn't start and expectations that wouldn't wait. Lena stood in the kitchen one morning, staring at the empty chair at the head of the table. Her father used to sit there during Sunday visits, pretending not to spoil the kids while absolutely spoiling them. He would have complained about the coffee, Elias said quietly, setting 2 mugs down. And still drank it, Lena replied, managing a small smile. Their daughter, Elira, climbed onto her chair. Mama, Grandpa Victor used to say I draw like you. Lena knelt beside her. That's because he finally learned how to see. Time moved forward the way it always does, without asking permission. Elias's garage expanded slowly. Never recklessly. He refused shortcuts, even when competitors mocked him for it. You could be bigger by now, one man scoffed. Elias wiped his hands and replied, I don't need bigger. I need honest. Customers trusted that. They brought their friends. Then their families. Lena returned to teaching art full-time. She wore simple clothes, paint on her fingers, and laughter in her voice. The kids adored her. Most had no idea who her father was. She liked it that way. One evening, after the kids were asleep, Lena sat beside Elias on the porch. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. He looked at her. Regret what? Walking into my world. Losing the quiet life you had. Elias took her hand. I didn't lose anything. I found you. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I was so afraid you'd never forgive me. I didn't forgive you, he said gently. I understood you. That mattered more. Years rolled into decades. Their son, Noah, grew into Elias's shadow at the garage, asking questions, sweeping floors, learning patience before skill. Money comes and goes, Elias told him one afternoon. Your name stays. Lena watched from the doorway, heart full. Illness came when they least expected it. Elias collapsed at the garage one morning, pain ripping through his chest. Lena rode with him in the ambulance, gripping his hand so tightly her knuckles whitened. Hey, he whispered, forcing a smile. You're shaking. I can't lose you, she said, voice breaking. You won't, he replied. Not today. Surgery followed. Long nights. Fear that whispered what if. When Elias finally woke, Lena was there. You're stubborn, she said through tears. He smiled weakly. Married a stubborn woman. Had to keep up. Recovery was slow. Business dipped. Savings thinned. But love held. On their 50th anniversary, Elias stood in the rebuilt garage, now larger but still humble. He held Lena's hands, eyes shining. I would choose you, he said. In every lifetime. Even if I had to find you on the street again. She laughed through tears. I'd still take the sandwich. They grew old together. Wrinkled hands. Slower steps. Softer voices. One quiet night, Lena passed in her sleep, her hand resting on Elias's chest. He didn't cry at first. He just held her. She finally looks peaceful, he whispered. Elias followed her months later. At his funeral, Noah stood before the small crowd. My parents taught us something simple, he said. That love is the only wealth that never burns. Years later, people still told the story. Not as gossip. Not as scandal. But as proof. That love chosen freely is stronger than power. That integrity outlives money. That a woman who gave up everything found more than she ever imagined. If this story stayed with you, take a moment now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing what part touched you the most. Stories like this live on because you keep listening. And somewhere, beyond wealth and status, two souls smiled, knowing they were remembered for the only thing that ever mattered.